Welcome back to Galaxy Grudge Match. Last episode we spoke of rodents and anime chicks. Now that you, our audience, have had a chance to comment on the matter, we would like to finally settle this long-debated matchup for the centuries.
I assume all of you can hardly wait, on the edge of your seats if you will. So, let's get into our first comment.
Our first comment comes from Galaxy Video's very own Ducko. Let's see what he has to say.
On the topic of Uncle Ian, David Cross hated working on those movies, especially Shipwrecked. He was stuck in a bad contract with bad producers. If the Love Life girls want to put the chipmunks on a rosette reel, he'll let them. But more importantly, there is a factor that nobody has considered. As far as I know, the chipmunks are frauds! Fucking frauds! Or rather, Dave Seville has been pulling off a fraud this whole time. See, there is no singing chipmunks, no. Rather, it's an advanced combination of puppetry, holograms, and pitched up song files, or sped up records, back in the old days. Note that almost all of their songs are covered, aside on a few choice examples like that Christmas song. Fucking Christmas song, disgusting. How easy would it be to take an instrumental and lay on a pitched up vocals? Exactly. Who would really believe this cockamammy fack story about Dave suddenly finding singing chipmunks in his backyard? The Love Life girls will reveal Dave for the fraud he is, and much like the Visit of Oz, he will say with his pitched up microphone, "Don't look behind the curtain!" But it will be to no avail. And once Milli Vanilli sock puppets are revealed for what they are, everyone will everyone will flock to see the Love Life girls, since they're actually there at least. However, some will be confused at who these girls are, and wonder why they aren't playing Knights of Cindoria, whatever the fuck that is, and songs like that, which will lead to a sizable portion of the audience leaving. But whether left with 3/4 or half of their audience, 15,000 out of 150,000, or even just 15 people watching after that, everyone's got their money back from Dave's fraud operation, rendering Muse still the winners of this competition. If you want to believe that Alvin and the Chipmunks are real for some reason, then the girls can call on Silver Gunner, ally of Fred Flintstone, who will bash the chipmunks with a club and turn them into household appliances, certainly.
Well, Ducko, the problem here is that you have on your tinfoil hat, because this is some crackpot theories that just plain isn't true. Alvin and the Chipmunks have plenty of moments where they're alone, without Dave. How intelligent do you think Dave is? Is he some mastermind that's making them move always to keep up the charade? It ain't possible!
Yeah, in all honesty, this is only really here because of how few debates I got for my side. Also, as much as I love Siva Gunner, those incarnations of Muse are clearly non-canon and so can't be included. Sorry, Duckman. Next.
I think the issue here is that most of the arguments for the Muse base their fame off of the real world, whereas the Chipmunks had their arguments based on the fictitious world this fight seems to take place in. It's unfair to say that Alvin and the Chipmunks are a normality in their world, yet the Love Life girls have all this merch in real-life Japan. They've had concerts in the real world, yes, but are you seriously going to say that it's the real, living, breathing Nozomi from the anime where you can go up to her and have a conversation with her? If this did happen in the real world, the novelty of real chipmunks would hold greater significance, but to my understanding, it isn't. The Muse in-universe isn't all it's cracked up to be in this video. Them getting back together would draw in a crowd, if it weren't for the fact that this were in Switzerland, and they're a Japanese idol group. At the end of the day, I believe it's more likely for them to just get together and perform one big number together, but Alvin and the Chipmunks win the question of who draws in a bigger crowd alone.
Sorry for the confusion, but this doesn't actually take place in Switzerland. Me, and even Max, the person who would be benefited from this taking place there, were actively against Switzerland being the location of choice here. We debated with the mindset of this being completely neutral. To quote Ducky Boy, "Both are well loved, in this location," making that particular argument less valid.
But to be fair, Brandon's other points, like the Muse being a Japanese thing, only would hurt them compared to Alvin the Chipmunks, who are a global thing thanks to the plushies in the first movie speaking many languages.
Well, something you said that actually helps me more than you'd think, but I'll mention that later. For now, Muse is more widespread than Brandon makes them out to be if you ask me, seeing as they were not only able to gain popularity in Japan, but America too. Also, the argument about where this takes place is a confusing one, as both me and Max mentioned real-world significance, like the Walk of Fame and the fact that just about everyone at least has heard the name Alvin and the Chipmunks, being mentioned in Max's argument, so I assumed that we could use both in our debates. Sorry about that.
I will say that we did both sort of switch on and off with if this were the real world or not, but now I think we actually have it settled on being the fictional world. That being said, if it was the real world, being actual chipmunks would undoubtedly draw a larger audience, not just from music fans, but from scientists and shit.
I agree with it now. This taking place in a fusion of both fictitious worlds is the best choice here. Personally, I see the girls taking this one for a couple of reasons. They're a band of anime girls, and let's be honest, most people would rather see cute waifus sing over rodents any day of the week. Alvin might be a douche at times, but he isn't going to travel back in time to rip apart a bunch of people's lives. Nor would he have a monster kill them. They are children. Honestly, I think the biggest reason for the girls to win comes from an important point that Mr. Ribbit didn't even bring up. In the movie, I'm not sure about the cartoon, Alvin and the Chipmunks get outclassed by the Chipettes. It's shown later that the Chipettes are way more popular than Alvin and the guys, so I can see them losing out here as well. But let's be honest, the real winner is Hatsune Miku.
Okay, first things first. Why do you think Frankenstein's monster would kill the Muse anyways? Didn't you see the special? Aren't you an avid Chipmunks fan like yours truly? Frankie's a sweetheart in that movie. He'd probably just kidnap them. With a giant bag! Like my other assistant, Uncle Ian!
Bring my girls right to me.
Stop with the bag-based arguments!
You're just jealous you didn't think of it first. Anyhow, with your third argument, I would like to mention that we're mostly using the cartoon Chipmunks, not the film version of them. I made a few references with Uncle Ian, but my focus here is actually on the cartoon.
I have a few points against that, but first, I take full responsibility for him thinking that Frankie would go in with murderous intent, as I made it seem that way for the sake of a cheeky little jokey joke. But let me ask, you just said that this is only the cartoon versions of Alvin and the Chipmunks, which is all well and good, but does that not thoroughly debunk your plushie argument from like a minute ago?
Well, even aside from those films, Alvin and the Chipmunks still do get merch in their cartoons, so I don't see why this should matter too much. Let's see who's next. I will say the Chipmunks will win, as sure seeing Love Live in real life will be a great, but if Alvin and the Chipmunks are real, I think a lot of people will go nuts, and will be sold out as soon as the show has been announced, and it will be nostalgic for people to see the show. And if they do encounter each other, I think Love Live girls will see them and adore the Chipmunk, and the Chipmunk can use where's the plural? Can use that to convince them to change their schedule. If that failed, they can always go to a certain mouse who is known for doing some shady stuff, and could easily bribe the person in charge of scheduling to schedule Love Live for a different time, and that is why I think Alvin and the Chipmunks perform better than the Love Live.
A mouse? What is this? Space Jam vs. Infinity War? First of all, this is in-universe, so again, they aren't special anymore. They're not even the only Chipmunk band. Nostalgia for what? Alvin and the Chipmunks are still young in this circumstance, I assume. Unless we're going to run into a big fat balding Simon coming on stage. I assume that this would just be another concert for them. Not some comeback after years away concert like Muse, who canonically split up.
I think what he means is that in the real world, people will recognize the Chipmunks. Except, we're not using the real world in this case. So, there wouldn't be any nostalgia to bank off of. Still, I think you bring up a good argument in that the Alvin and the Chipmunks would be cute to the Muse ladies, and they'd probably be more than willing to switch their dates for them.
How easy do you think it is to change the date of a concert? I mean, Muse are very nice people, but they can't just change dates like that. People have already bought their tickets, and they've already bought out a stadium. They can't just go, "Oh, yeah! Can we change the dates of our concert to be the next day? Yeah!" I'm sure if they could, they'd want to, because Muse are the more mature folks here, but nah, that can't happen, sadly.
Okay, but what if Theodore does the Juicy Wiggle for them?
Max, what the fuck is them dancing gonna do? It will not change a thing about what I just said.
Anyways, it's not like the Chipmunks even need to convince them to change their date, since Simon still has that time machine, so we could just warn them about this misfortunate event before they schedule anything.
And this time machine was used to similar effect in the show? Alvin didn't break it or anything? That's a rhetorical question, by the way. That is exactly what Alvin did. They have never used it. There's even been an episode of the Amazing CG show where Simon literally messes with Alvin, making him think that he has a time machine when he doesn't. So, no, they could not do that, Mr. Funnies.
There are still episodes where they actually do time travel, though. In one episode, they met their 60s counterparts. So, via some means, not necessarily through his time machine, they can time travel in some sense. Anyhow, let's move on to our next comment from Biffweed.
Hello there, laddie, I'm Scottish. I've got to go with the Chipmunks. Their live-action movies were works of art. Even being better than the iconic masterpieces that came out the same year, the road chip like Shacktopus vs. Werewolf, and even potentially Smush the movie. Frankenstein from the 1970s hit the Dracula vs. Frankenstein would also make it very easy for the Chipmunks to win thanks to his sheer quality and character. Also, if the Love Live girls have such a good chance of winning, then why Simon? Ultra Instinct Alvin would also be a pain to deal with, as it would put him above the gods of destruction in the Chipverse, like Uncle Ian with the Donald and the Squeakquel. Though let's be brutally honest here, Biggie Fries would absolutely outperform both groups. I can't do the Scottish accent anymore, sorry Biffweed. But if you want my actual prediction, despite my lack of knowledge on either, I would probably give it to the Chipmunks. Their music having a wider reach outside of a single country is really going to benefit them. It's hard to have it on neutral ground when a worldwide hit is going up against a countrywide hit. I also wouldn't put it past Alvin to sabotage them. A lot of factors that would prevent him from doing so or make him think twice about it are ones that he wouldn't have prior knowledge of, so they shouldn't really play too much of a role in this. I can absolutely see either side being able to take it, but I have to give it to the Chipmunks, unfortunately, and by extension, Uncle Ian, very unfortunately. I do agree that Biggie Fries would prevail here, but he is not here, unfortunately.
Biggie Fries doesn't belong here. Don't even bring up memes on this show. You know who could be watching. But even if Biggie Fries had such a good shot at prevailing here, why Simon?
I have no idea how to respond to that.
That must mean it's a good question.
I feel Alvin would think twice before doing some of the things Max mentioned here. Sure, I can believe the Nozomi card thing, but that would require knowledge of the girls individually, which, as you just said, they don't have.
There are other methods of sabotage Alvin could pull off. That Nozomi card trick was more of an example I wanted to make, whilst also displaying that I have indeed seen Love Live as well. Alvin could probably, steal their microphones or disable their lights in secret, without letting it be known that it was him. So no, Muse can't, and not to mention won't, just fucking kill Alvin and feast on him. They won't even know it was him who did it.
That was clearly a joke, you cuck. You think Hayano has it in her to hit a chipmunk? Of course not. She looks after animals, for crying out loud.
Hanukkah doesn't know her own strength. She'll accidentally do it, and then it is the Muse that goes to jail.
Why would she be doing that? Wait, why do we keep on defaulting to murder? That's out of character for both.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't get it. But let's just move on to this man with the mismatching name and icon.
I think Alvin the Chipmunks got this. While I admit the girls are indeed strong, though it's not like they want to hurt him, they have no combat experience, and they are a pacifist. Also, Alvin is shown tricky to even affect entire neighborhoods, and even supernatural.
The show, of course. He's outsmarting Dean.
Also, Alvin is shown to manipulate Simon into actually going through with his plans, and it takes legitimately at the last minute, where Simon realized which will be too late. Also, Love Live team wouldn't know Alvin sabotaged their band if they never experienced this before, especially against a skilled prankster like Alvin. Alvin doesn't need to destroy their relationship, just destroys their equipment. Also, while Love Live are 18, they're complete pacifists, meaning they would pretty much fall for Alvin's pranks.
Hanukkah knows kendo and Umi knows archery. I mentioned this in part 1. So yes, they do have combat experience. Besides, they've literally knocked each other out in a pillow fight. These guys can get down to business if they needed to. But I agree, they wouldn't want to.
I believe that Wright over here brings up a good point, and that the Muse have never had to deal with any kind of sabotage. The Love Live world actually isn't all that hostile. Plus, his point of Alvin tricking Simon into helping him is well documented, as it's a common thing that happens in the series.
I mean, sure, but at any concert, there's security and backups for things like microphones in case there's technical difficulties. Any professional group like Muse should do that sort of stuff. And again, there would be security. If anything, Alvin and the Chipmunks could be exposed for doing this. And you know how quickly the internet is swayed on people nowadays. If they were exposed for trying to sabotage another concert, I wouldn't go see them, and I feel like many others would agree.
Exposed, you say? My chipmunks are lightning quick! They roll with the punches! They'll never get caught! But I digress. Next up, we have our final, and even best comment yet. A world-shattering comment that will change how you look at this debate. A series of comments, if you will.
This comment was actually the deciding factor, and a collaborative effort between two intellectual individuals. I.e., Tim and Gunslinger. Yes, the Tim and Gunslinger. Let's read this thing. I am so honoured. I love the live-action Alvin and the Chipmunk movies.
Kid, those movies suck and you know it! The only reason you like them is because of nostalgia!
I like them the way they are!
That was the comment? I expected something that wasn't just two people arguing over the quality of pizza toots.
Hold your tongue! This is the Tim and Gunslinger! I don't think you understand the magnitude of this.
Well, I guess that does it for the comment comeback, as it were. So now, we're going to show you guys the poll, and... wait a minute. There are 38 votes for Muse and only 10 votes for Alvin? I guess Ribbit was right. The Muse does have a more passionate fan base. Or this is the work of some mischievous Muse fan. Galaxy Grudge Match has never gotten this many votes in a poll before. Then there's this mysterious comment from Amaya Pidesu that links to an image of Nico Fano-snapping the poll. Something tells me we found our culprit. Unless it wasn't you. In which case, I'm sorry.
It's hard for me to deny that this seems a little rigged, but then again I got way fewer comments, so I feel you'll survive. You got the more useful form of support. Unfortunately for whoever voted on this, whether it's Max's fellow or not, the votes don't decide the verdict. It's a matter of me and Max deciding on an outcome we can mutually agree on. Hence why comments are far more useful here.
Alright, first things first. I want to thank you commenters for this episode. Nobody pretended as if it were a fight, and it seems like you all watched the video and even brought up your own points. Thanks for taking this Chipmunk versus Love Live debate so seriously. Now, as it were finally here after all of these shenanigans and harebrained schemes, who have we decided wins this bout? Well, even in spite of the comments favoring the Chipmunks, I have actually turned my faith into the Muse prevailing.
It was really close. Both of us had points where we thought that the other was going to win. Trust me, there was a point where I felt that the Juicy Wigglers had this in the Uncle Ian bag.
But after I reevaluated some things and looked over my own arguments, I noticed a few fallacies. First thing, the whole global popularity thing for Alvin, well, that's only ever in the live-action films, whereas I mostly intended on using the cartoon canon. But even if I did use the live-action Chipmunks, there becomes a problem. I looked into Combo's comment and actually took a look at the fourth film, and in that, it's actually a plot point that Alvin and the Chipmunks are irrelevant, a problem that they don't solve by the end of that movie. In the cartoon, they're just standardly popular, probably as much as Muse, except for the Love Live movie where they gained popularity in America, giving Muse an entire country over Alvin in popularity. As for my little time machine argument, well, I actually went and watched the episode, what a novel idea, and found that we never actually saw the time machine do anything. Alvin broke it. In that episode they time travel because the merry-go-round goes really fast, somehow. So while you may argue that Simon could just rebuild it, we never saw the time machine work in the first place, so who knows if it can be useful here. And after that episode, Simon has never really seen of a time machine. Every other time travel episode is the result of some wacky shit, unrelated to Simon's devices. Like when they met their 60s counterparts, not via Simon's time machine, but Clyde Crash Cup's time machine.
Clyde Crash Cup. As for Simon's other inventions, well, to use them on Muse would be pretty morally dubious, and despite Alvin being a trickster in his own right, they're all still above something of this magnitude. Alvin shows to be a nice kid very often. It's also worth noting that, ignoring the Switzerland joke, the scenario says that this isn't a place where they're both loved. The problem for the Chipmunks is, Muse has more die-hard fans if we use the cartoon, which we've established. And if not, well, Muse aren't irrelevant like the Chipmunks are in those movies, as they still put out music on occasion. In fact, since they split up, Muse coming back is going to be a big deal. In Alvin and the Chipmunks' case, it's just going to be another concert. And again, since they're canonically irrelevant, most wouldn't go the extra mile to go abroad for them. But some Muse fans would. After all, the Chipettes are more popular than the Chipmunks in that world. And they're basically rip-offs.
In the words of McDonald's, you're fired!
Alvin! Again, we're not using their movie versions, but those versions are the ones that had the worldwide plushies. And so, Alvin and the Chipmunks are lacking in proof of worldwide appeal in the cartoon.
That's not even getting into whose music is objectively better. I believe my biggest flaw was that I actually just sort of looked up Alvin shit and believed it. And to some degree, I ignored some things that wouldn't benefit me, like the stuffed plushie thing coming strictly from the films. I really think, despite the comment majority, I actually bet on the wrong horse here, and Alvin probably only got so many votes because I spread misinformation about time travel being an option at all. Although to be fair, I didn't see anyone using time travel in their arguments. That said...
Alvin, Simon, and Theodore find themselves without the equipment they need. Their sabotage attempts failed, and Nico was able to get one over on them. So this caused their show to be cancelled, causing all three of the Chipmunks great sadness. However, their clearly sad expressions catch the attention of Muse's leader. Honoka walks up to the three boys and offers them a spot on their stage. With newfound friendship, they were able to put on a show with more passion than Muse's fanbase had ever seen. Not only that, but Alvin and the Chipmunks fanbase flocks to this show as well, making it the most successful show that either of these groups had ever had. Hit or miss? I guess they never miss, huh? Also, which chipmunk is getting the best head? Okay, there you go, those are referenced.